Thank it's Joe all in the reflex. I think something big is going to happen with the Lions, I believe, with the cap space. So he thinks that there could be something big here with the cap space. Now, when I look at this cap space, like I said, I'd love to get a player, but I think they're definite. Maybe they use this a little bit too on Lee McNeil, get that contract done. You talked about Taylor Decker potentially, right? But what if there is a trade at the trade deadline, right? We're rumored to have a trade at the trade deadline last year. We did get Donovan Peoples-Jones. Wasn't the big name, but if we still have big money and there is an edge pass rusher out there that I don't know, from a struggling team that's on the last year of the deal and he wants out of there, I would. If he could really upgrade the defensive line, I would. Man, I may do it. What do you think about that, Aman?
I'm fully in agreement. Like, that's where I'm at. Like I say, I think for now they will scour free agency and they will look to find any more pieces that way. And then as the season progresses, you'll start to see the trade talk. And, like you say, again, a lot of teams are in rough cap situations next year. Teams have to start thinking that way. If they're having a rough season, if the cap's done, they'll start jettisoning guys. They'll start getting rid of them. And you can get some really good players out of it. And, last year we weren't ready to make that jump. Imagine if we'd have given away a second round pick or something last year for someone bigger. We just were not ready.
We're not ready.
We were that little bit short. But this year, we return all our young core. We've lost next to nobody of importance on this team. We've got another good draft class coming. So if you are cooking come trade deadline, this is the team now that can go on and win the Super Bowl. I think they've added that little bit of juice they needed. It's maybe just the edge rush. So if you think all you need is a bookend edge to go out and get it, then you will do so. And I know people talk about you've got to keep the window open and that, but you also can't be naive in this business. There will come an opportunity of a season when you're like, right, this is an opportunity and we need to go for it. You can't just naively assume it's going to come back, because hell, Jared Goff may get hurt. Jared Goff may regress completely and Hooker might fail. And then we're screwed. Our window's gone completely. You have to be aware that the circumstances are in your favor and you have to go out and take the opportunity. So that is why I would keep the money as it is for now, unless it's in free agency. And then if you get into the deadline, I would use it, because it might be the best opportunity that we get this year. We have one of the best rosters in the NFL, and we're in a position where we can pay all our guys and we're not hemorrhaging talent and losing anybody. So I agree. I do think they will make a big splash come the time, if the circumstances are right.
And they're smart too when it comes to the NFL draft. They're not going to just give up the future either for a player or anything like that. They've been smart with these trades, generally speaking, not doing some crazy, giving up a first round pick or something like that. That would really hamper your franchise going forward, because for us to continue to be good, we still got to draft good every year, right? You got to replace the talent, and that's how your team's always good. It's young and got quality players, and you can save money with these younger players. So you always got to have those draft picks. But like you said, man, sometimes you got to make a move, because getting to a Super Bowl or winning it's not just that you got to be a good team. That's a part of it. But you got to have luck when it comes to injuries. You got to have luck when it comes to plays. You got to have a little bit of luck when it comes to referees. And I mean, look, we've been to the NFC Championship twice in the Lions franchise. It doesn't happen much. So you're right. You got to kind of sometimes take advantage of it, unlike teams like the Buffalo Bills, who now their window seems to be closing. That's what I'm seeing. They're going in the wrong direction here. And if the Ravens don't do it soon, they're going to be going in the wrong direction here. So we're not at that point right now, right? We're not a team, I think, that's desperation mode. I think there's a couple desperate teams out there, and they know that, like the 49ers, they got a little bit to go, man, because as soon as they got to pay their quarterback, all these spectacular players are going to be, they're not going to have them all. So I think you got to balance a nice balance right there.
And the other thing you've got to take into account, which is why I'm more in favor of doing work at the deadline now before the start of the season, you've got to give your own players an opportunity as well, because you might be, if you start going out making rash moves now, you are going to block the development of your younger players, which you may develop to the point where you don't need to make that move in the first place. Like this year, specifically, there's a few guys who this year is a very big year for. You think Onwuzurke, like this is a very big year for him because I know he had the good end last year, but again, injuries have sort of messed around with him, inconsistent form. He's played well at last. If you get up to deadline time and he's struggling again this year and has regressed, then you've probably got to say that time's over and you've got to move on. And if you need to bring in a big addition at safety or in the secondary to do it, then you do it. You've at least given him the chance to. The linebacker core, no one talks about the linebacker core this year, but like I've been very much in favor of not adding to the linebacker core at the minute because this year you want to see, is Derek Barnes going to be a big part of my future here? Because, like, you know, year 3 was a decent year for him. Can he take the step up to starter status this year and be the long-term replacement for Anzalone as we wanted him to be? And Malcolm, you want to see if he can be a part of this team because, like, his rookie year, he played really well. And then he sat all last year doing loads of special teams work, and that comes in against the Bucks and looks flawless. And it's like, give him his opportunity, because if you can get Barnes and Rodriguez to the point where they're starting and the rotation guys for your team, it's 2 less holes to fill. Instead of going out there rashly and filling it in free agency before the season, you need to give these guys time to audition. And then when you come to the deadline, then you kind of know a lot more and you can make more sensible decisions for the future. So again, that's why I think we should wait a little till then. So same with the edge room. I want to see what they can do first before rashly just chucking Houston and Pascal away and that. Like we it's better for us if they get good this year. Then we don't have to go out and pay stupid money for another edge.
100%. And you made up a great point. It's the development. So maybe they were counting on Pascal to develop, counting on some of these guys to develop. And so people like me who are complaining about edge, they're just like, yeah, they don't really know. These guys are developing. I mean, look, Derek Barnes and Iffy are 2 huge examples of that. They came out of nowhere and just been really good. So, I mean, we could have replaced them right before the season start, but they counted on it. These guys stepped up, and that's what it's all about. So you're 110% correct. And it's that balance.
Exactly. Everyone has their own development schedule. You know, we think about Penny and Amon-Ra and you know, these guys who made an impression quite quickly and were all-star players already. Like, not all players follow that trajectory. Like, we've had to take our time with Iffy. Like, if some people had their way, Iffy would be the way of the dodo by now. He'd never have had the opportunity to do that last year. The same with Barnes. He'd have never had his way. And then this year, you're hopefully going to see the likes of Sorsdal and Martin. Yeah. They're going to start taking their steps forward. And it's long-term development into the team. Like, we were in a great situation last year. The fact that Broderick has been able to sit for a year, take it all in, learn, develop, not be rushed into the team. If he now comes into this year fully prepared, ready to go, and we've developed him properly, wonderful.
Awesome.
Like, in years past, there's times when we've just lobbed rookies into the team and left them for dead, sort of. It's sometimes not a healthy thing to play them all the time right away just because they're not ready. It destroys the confidence. It destroys the trajectory of what's going on. Like, we have a nice little balance of players who seem to perform really quick or ones who it just takes a little bit of time with, but it always works in the end.
Broderick's going to be a fun one because if he can't, like, he really changed his body. He really put in the work this offseason. If he can contribute like we think he can, I mean, look, Aleem McNeil changed his body, and we've seen what he did. He could do that, boy. If you could put Broderick Martin between Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader and having him coming in and out when players are resting, this team going to be good through 4 quarters. Like, that would be amazing to have something like that, to have the big bodies up front. You can switch them in and out, and it's not much of a difference. That's the ideal plan right there.
I mean, it's not easy. Like, you're coming in against all these big, beefy offensive linemen, like you're getting double teamed, etc., whatever. You saw Aleem. Aleem took time to get involved in this team, and you know, the level of competition he played against college was far superior to anything that Broderick's had to face. Like, Broderick spent 3 years in the FCS, and then he had 1 year in the CUSA, which is like FBS light. The level of competition that he's like, the jump is massive. So it takes time. You can't just throw him in there and expect him to be grappling one-on-one with some great centers and like the guys who are at the top of their game. You've got to learn your technique. You've got to get all that there. And it takes time, especially with the defensive tackles. Like we're seeing Aleem really get there now. I always knew Aleem would get there. Like he was great. And it's just a very difficult position to learn. Like there are very few DTs. Like how many do you think of instantly that like Pro Bowls first year, stuff like that? Not like wide receivers who are flashy and that. It's you think of the best you think of the best DTs in the league. You're taking like Donald or when it was Vita Vea, you know, like these guys who are seasoned, tenured veterans who've been in the league a long time. It takes a lot of time because there is so much. It's all the dirty work, and you don't get any of the plaudits. You don't get the flashy stats. You don't get. You are grinding for your teammates, and you get very little back out of it. So, you know, for Broderick, like it was going to take time, and I hate people who get on at him who've been like, "Oh, he should be in." No, he shouldn't. This is what we should be doing with him. We should be gently bedding him in. We should be getting him in the right shape. We should be getting his technique, you know, bang on before we start throwing him in there. So.
And we talked about that now players who we draft, they're not going to see a lot of playing time compared to years past. And I think people are going to start to get used to that. And they're like, what is going on with Broderick last year? I'm like, look, this team is not the same team. They have a lot of good talent on there. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for these younger guys to do it. But it's good because it gives them time to develop. Young players need development. And I think in the NFL today, a lot of young players get pushed out there really quick, and it can screw it up. And
especially quarterbacks. No more so than quarterback. Like, you remember the day and age when you would draft a brand new, even if it's at the top of the first, and you'd have a mentor for him. You're getting ready for it. You're training properly for it. The best teams are the ones that don't have to rush their rookies in necessarily. Like, fair enough. In Penne's case, when the generational guys, etc. But would Amon-Ra have seen the field if we'd have had like Golladay, Golden Tate, all these guys in the team? Like, no, he wouldn't have. He'd have sat and learned and waited his turn. So you're right. We're in a different position now. But this is good. The fact that Sorsdal's had a year, the fact that Martin's had a year, these offensive linemen to get right, to get their techniques better, to get their body shape better, to do all this, and hopefully in 2 or 3 years from now, when they're both contributing on this team, you're like, actually, they did a good job with them. And it takes time, but we're in a position where we can afford to.